Our second speaker is Reverend Charline Manuel. She is a minister in the the Unity Church, rather, and is was most recently chair of the board of the Unity World Headquarters, located just outside Kansas City in our own state. She is also immediate post-chair of the Global Ethic Committee of the Parliament of World Religions, which I believe is how Dr. Rosan got to know her. Our next speaker, as I introduced earlier, is Reverend Charlene Manuel, and she will be talking to us about from shared wisdom to shared action, the global ethic. So thank you for being here, Reverend Charlene, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. It is um, a pleasure and a joy to be on this call today, to be with all of you. And thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate the opportunity. Anytime I'm given the opportunity to be in a space with people who really know the importance of changing the consciousness of the world so that we may survive, who are serious about that enough to take time and talk about it to see what can we do. I am happy to be in those spaces. That is the kind of energy that I want to be a part of, and that is something, as Professor Starr just said. I mean, we need to know the facts so that we can do something about it before it's too late. So I'm really honored to be here, and I learned a lot from Professor Starr in that presentation just before me. One of the things that, as I work with religious and spiritual leaders in the work that I do, one of the questions that I ask, because it's a question that I often ask for myself, how can we um, uh, get all people on the planet to realize the interconnectedness that we share? What can we do as spiritual leaders, religious leaders, or wherever we are? What can we do to help people understand that there is a thread that runs through humanity that connects us all? And after listening to Professor Starr, that is absolutely a good question, because as he said in his presentation, if one of those nuclear weapons hit, there's not going to be, maybe the Republicans will get saved, maybe the Democrats will be saved, maybe the older people will be saved, or the young people will be saved, or maybe the people who are straight will be saved, or maybe the people who are gay. It doesn't matter. The devastation will affect us all. So once we come to an awareness that what we do to one, we do to all of us, maybe some of the thinking can shift, can change, and maybe we can make different kinds of decisions. How do we come to the recognition and the awareness that our first family is the human family, and that the earth is our shared home, is our shared home? To save the planet, to save the earth, benefits all of us who inhabit the planet. We use DNA and fingerprints and even dental records to identify our individual uniqueness. But the very fact that these systems or defining characteristics exist so accurately, so wonderfully, so magnificently points to a connectedness that is stronger and greater than our differences. And yet our differences are on full display. in this moment where there's conflict and war and hearing about the nuclear weapons and the uncertainty that people are suffering all around the globe. We feel it locally and we feel it and acknowledge it globally. So it is right and good that we are gathered today in such a time as this for meetings such as this, where we can come together to speak up, to educate, as we had in Professor Starr's presentation, to stand up for the kind of world we want to live in and the kind of world that we would like to leave for the next generation and the generations to come. So today I want to speak on a line of moral thinking, the idea of an ideal, I should say, of for transforming lives, for transforming life on the planet, and lift up the document that has been crafted from our shared wisdom that comes from most of our religious traditions, and that is a document called the Global Ethic. It is the Parliament of the World's Religions signature document. And so I want to speak a little bit about that today, and then I'm going to do a quick run through of what that is and just take a look at what's possible from having a better understanding of such a document and what we can do, if anything. And yes, something can always be done until it's over. So before I became served on the board of the Parliament of the World's Religions, I didn't know very much about this document, this powerful, meaningful document that has the ability that once we understand it and begin to put action behind it, has the capacity to transform life on our planet, transform our individual so that we can expand it out to include the globe. I first learned about the global ethic when I attended the Parliament of the World's Religions convening in Barcelona, Spain in 2004. And that's where I first learned about this global ethic and didn't really understand it that much, but I thought there's got to be something there. But what happened at that convening is I had a transformative experience of what the possibilities can be when we learn and live the global ethic. I was immersed in a moment where I felt, and trying to describe it to someone else is difficult. I know we've all had experiences where we try to describe some unique experience that we have had to other people, and they go like, "Hmm, that's interesting." So it's one of those kind of experiences where you try and describe something that's really indescribable, but had a moment where with 8,000 other people present from, for example, 90 different countries, 60 different languages, 120 different religious and spiritual traditions, and dressed in a sea of cultural attire that I can only describe as a sea of beauty. And in that moment, something happened for me. And just for an instant, stay with me here, because again, I said this is one of those experiences where it's hard to explain to someone else. But just for an instant, what I felt like is this is what peace on earth is like. And that experience tells me, because just because I experienced it for that little moment, that maybe it's possible for 2 moments, for an hour, for a week, for a month. Maybe this is the way we can live just from having that short experience. I told you it was difficult to describe. But that was the sense of what I felt in that moment. This is what peace on earth is like. And because I have experienced it, therefore, it's really possible. So I began to study the global ethic from a lived experience with my personal experience behind me and saying, let me search for, let me look for, let me delve into this document that's being promoted here at this event, and let me just see what can I do, what can I learn? And again, back to my opening question, which is how can we somehow, some way get everybody on the planet on board with realizing that there is an interconnectedness, and from that place start to be better, do better, and live better on the planet together. So it seems for me is that want to just tell you a little bit about the global ethic document. It was originally drafted by a German theologian whose name was Hans Kuhn, and he um, drafted the document over years and years. And then another 2 years working with other religious scholars and theologians from many different religious traditions and crafting it in such a way that says this is an ethic by which we will agree is an initial um, understanding of how we can come together, live together, and have harmony in the world and live together in peace, mostly. So I say that this document crafted, it's initially titled Towards a Global Ethic, and it says in the title, subtitle, an initial declaration, because when it was approved by the conference body at the 1993 convening, it was agreed that it's an initial step, a big step, an initial step, but there would be more because we're evolving, we're changing, life is still continuing to happen. And they were absolutely right, so that by 2018, there was an addition made to the document to include what's known as the fifth directive that addresses our need to care for the planet, our need to care and sustain the earth. So, with that being said, I want to just, walk you through a little bit of this document, a little bit. And when I say walk you through it, I mean it's a 16-page document. And in fact, if you go on the Parliament's website, which is parliamentofreligions.org / global ethic, you can read the document. It's 16 pages. So obviously, I'm not going to read the 16 pages to you, but I want to share a little bit from this document with you just to give you a sense of and hopefully inspire you to say, if you haven't already read it, to read it. And if you've read it before, to maybe read it again and see if there's something that you can glean from it to say, I've had a new revelation of what I can do and how I can use it in my work to again get more and more and more of the planet to realize we're all in this thing together. And the sooner we realize that and work together, the sooner we can get to some real solutions that help us to be here better longer. So the global ethic opens up like this, and I'm going to just read. This is a couple of paragraphs that I'm going to read to you first. This starts with, the world is in agony. Now remember, this document is 30 years old now. So interesting that the world is in agony as it was, as they saw it 30 years ago. The world is in agony. The agony is so pervasive and urgent that we are compelled to name its manifestations so that the depth of this pain may be made clear. This is abhorrent. We condemn the abuses of Earth's ecosystems. We condemn the poverty that stifles life's potential, the hunger that weakens the human body, the economic disparities that threaten so many families with ruin. We condemn the social disarray of the nations, the disregard for justice, which pushes citizens to the margin. the anarchy overtaking our communities, and the insane death of children from violence. In particular, we condemn aggression and hatred in the name of religion. Now, I don't know about you, but the very first time that I read this, I didn't like it. Well, it's not written there for us to like, but I didn't like it. I didn't like it because what I felt like, wow, this is so negative. Because I consider myself a positive thinker. I like to keep my thoughts high. I like to think my I think on a higher level of being. But then when I realized that this isn't about whether you like it or not, this is about the reality of how people are living. It's about a reality that we feel and that we sense and that we know is happening in people's lives, and negative or positive is not the issue. It's a reality for some people. And we see that because we see suffering all over the world. And to put a blind eye to that, you can, but it doesn't change that this is the reality for some. So I want to go on. I love this document because it starts at a place where we are mindful of the painful reality of how things are, moves us to hope for the future. Then the document shifts a bit and gives us a vision that for a better future, and then ends with the declaration and a declaration for action. So we've just heard the painful reality. So now I want to just kind of take you to a place and go a little bit deeper on the principles in the global ethic. Let me just read a little bit more to you here. It says an ethic already exists within the religious teachings of the world, which can counter the global distress. Of course, this ethic provides no direct solution for all the immense problems of the world, but it does supply the moral foundation for a better individual and global order, a vision which can lead women and men away from despair and society away from chaos. So I always like to raise that particular part of the global ethic because people want to hear something that's going to solve everything and it's going to be quick, fast, in a hurry. It's going to be a direct solution. So all we have to do is do this. No, but it does take us to a place we're taking a giant step forward and shifting a consciousness that will allow our individual lives to get better and then address some of the societal chaos that we're experiencing. And as we listened to Professor Starr just a little bit ago, we can hear that. And he even made a pledge and a plea. We've got to change our leaders so that they get this, so something can be made different. But then I move on to this place where, in talking about how do we live together on this planet, and start to recognize that we're all in this together, and what happens? How do we do in that process? So the writers of over 200 spiritual and religious leaders and scholars and theologians who crafted this uh, found a place called Common Ground. You've heard of it, called Common Ground, a place from which, okay, let's start with what we can agree on, and a place where we can work and then build on that and see where we can get to the next place. So they talk about the convictions that we hold in common, generally across religious and spiritual traditions. So let me just give you, there are five. I'm going to give them to you real quick. Number one, we all have a responsibility for a better global order. Number two, our involvement for the sake of human rights, freedom, justice, peace, and the preservation of earth is absolutely necessary. Three, our different religious and cultural traditions must not prevent our common involvement in opposing all forms of inhumanity and working for greater humaneness. Four, the principles expressed in this global ethic can be affirmed by all persons with ethical convictions, whether religiously grounded or not. And five, and I'm paraphrasing five because it's a little bit longer, we have a special responsibility for the welfare of all humanity and care for the earth. We do not consider ourselves better than other women and men, but we trust that the ancient wisdom of our religions can point the way for the future. I absolutely love that. I just, because we already have the knowledge, the wisdom in our ancient teachings from whatever religious tradition we come from. There are kernels of wisdom there to help us through this. Then the document moves to what I call the place of hope. So hear this. It starts with number one, that there is a fundamental demand that every human being must be treated humanely. I'm going to say that again because I think that's maybe the most important thing in here. That every human being must be treated humanely. Hear this. There is a principle which is found and has persisted in many religious and ethical traditions of humankind for thousands of years. Yes, thousands of years. What you do not wish done to yourself, do not do to others. In positive terms, it says, what you wish done to yourself, do to others. This should be irrevocable, unconditional norm for all areas of life for families and communities, races, nations, and religions. Now, the interesting thing I find about this, which is so powerful to me, because it's the golden rule, as we call it. If I were with you in person and we were all in a room together, I would ask you the question, how many of you learned this as a child? The golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I would ask you by show of hands to raise your hands, and I can all bet but promise you almost every hand in the room would grow up, would go up. We know this. We learned this as children. This is what our caretakers and our teachers, our leaders, they taught us, you know, in learning social norms and how to get along with people. Just treat people the way you want to be treated. It's not really complicated. If you want to be treated like a certain way, then treat others that way. And yet here we are. And yet here we are in this place of trying to figure out how to move through the war, how to move through the conflicts, how to move through anger and hate and fear of each other. How do we move through that? Yet here we are. And then we come to the place of what I call a vision for the future. And I say a vision for the future because it talks about, so what if? What if we did something? And if we did that very thing, what would happen? And so in the global ethic, there are five directives. So in the global ethic, and the global ethic is the short name of the document, as it says, it's towards a global ethic and initial declaration. There are five directives, and that's what I want to share briefly with you here. So when I talk about these directives, let me see if I can get my screen to advance here. Let's go, go, go. There we go. The first one is a commitment to a culture of non-violence and respect for life. The second, a commitment to a culture of solidarity and a just economic order. And third, commitment to a culture of tolerance and a life of truthfulness. Number four, commitment to a culture of equal rights and partnership between men and women. And finally, commitment to a culture of sustainability and care for the earth. And I've put the website for the parliament there at the bottom. If anybody would like to go and see the document, you can even download it and get very more familiar with it. Parliamentofreligions.org/global ethic. So I conclude now with this document by going to the conclusion of this place. What I like to think of is the declaration for action. And it is a declaration for action. And it's titled A Transformation of Consciousness. A Transformation of Consciousness. And this is the final paragraph. Let me read that to you, and then I will have walked you through 16 pages in 17 minutes. In conclusion, we appeal to all the inhabitants of this planet. Earth cannot be changed for the better unless the consciousness of individuals is changed. We pledge to work for such transformation in individual and collective consciousness for the awakening of our spiritual powers through reflection, meditation, prayer, or positive thinking for a conversion of the heart. Together, we can move mountains. Without a willingness to take risks and a readiness to sacrifice, there is no fundamental change in our situation. Therefore, we commit ourselves to a common global ethic to better mutual understanding as well as to socially beneficial, peace fostering, and earth friendly ways of life. And then I love this closing where it says, we invite all men and women, whether religious or not, to do the same. You don't have to be religious. You don't have to be religious to want a better life for everybody. At the global convenings, we then invite people who want to sign on to this declaration, to sign on to it. And there are thousands of people who have signed on to it. As a matter of fact, if you go to the website and read the document, it offers a place where, if you desire, you can actually do a virtual signature onto the document. And that's just saying, yes, I get it. I'm looking for ways to implement this in my life. What can I do with this? Yes, I see the vision of the importance of realizing that we have to work together and let that raise the entire level of consciousness of the planet. And certainly, I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't believe it. So that's why I told you of my experience. Now, if I were in just, when I used to just give regular keynote speeches or whatever, and then I would say at the end something inspirational. So I would say something like, yeah, we got to, make sure we call our political leaders and business leaders and tell them to lead better. Tell them to be more ethical. Tell them to be honest. Tell them to be more compassionate in the decision making and the policies that they're setting that affect all of us. That's what I used to say, and leave it there. And yes, we should do all of that. But obviously, that is not enough. Not enough. The path forward requires that we own a shared responsibility for a shared future. That individually we join hands together, that we realize that interconnectedness that we have, in the scripture where it says, "Love thy neighbor as thyself," like that, and join together with for a shared future that we are attempting to create. So I'm going to close by, and I'm going to just give a scripture, and I'm fully conscious that we all have our own religious traditions, and so don't want to impose upon anyone's belief or system of belief by giving a scripture from the Bible. But here's the thing that I believe and that has helped guide me in my own personal life, and that is wherever I find truth, regardless to which religion it's a part of, when I find something that is that can possibly make a difference for the betterment of myself and humanity, then I want to hear it. Then I want to be open to if there's something I can glean from it, something I can learn from it. So the scripture that I'm going to give is just one scripture, a couple of lines. See it as instruction, opportunity, an option, maybe even a choice. And I leave us with this, what I'm calling a call on all people, geographic locations, wherever we are on the planet, whatever religious or spiritual traditions we belong to, regardless to culture, race, gender, regardless to where our communities are located, doesn't matter. This one, two sentences um, tells the call that speaks to me so clearly, and maybe it will speak to you and you will feel called to hear it. And that is, it's from the book of Romans in the Holy Bible in the New Testament. It's chapter 12, verse 18. And of course, you know, there are obviously many different versions, but I'm going to paraphrase it and still give you the full context of what it says. It says this: if it is up, if it is up to you, insofar as it is up to you, and if it is possible, be at peace, live in peace with everybody. Now, I like that because it puts us squarely in the frame of it's up to us to do whatever we see that we can do. It puts us right there. It says, if it's possible, and insofar as it's up to you, be at peace and live at peace with everybody. And it sounds reasonable to me. And it says to me that, yeah, there's something about this that if I can take that as an instruction, if I can take it as an opportunity, if I can take it as an option, if I can take it as a choice, that this is the path that's going to allow me to feel, me to sense, you to sense that that transformation is our destiny so that we may live peaceably with everyone. Thank you so much for your kindness in hearing my words today, and bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Reverend Charlene.